I grew up in a place called Ballybrack. It's on the south side of Dublin. It's like a kind of, it's council estate, working class kind of area. So yeah, it'd be, it's right like beside Colins and all those, but it's kind of 3-bedroom council houses, basically. Like Legoland, as far as the eyes can see, the same house. So like the front of my house is the back of the next house. They didn't even bother to do them front to front. Do you get me? So it's just like that the whole way down, yeah. It's a bit crazy. Good though, like, obviously when I was growing up there, lots of kind of young people my age and all that kind of stuff, which was good, and then led to mischief, obviously, as well. So I kind of think, like, I actually thinking about this, might be a question, so I was thinking of how do I feel about it. I'm like, I think I got up to a lot of shit I probably wouldn't have had I had a sport like this involved in my life. I think I always had a competitive nature, and that, like, I didn't have anywhere to put it, basically. So I started doing bullshit at a young age. My dad died when I was 16, so that kind of started acting the bollocks, for want of a better phrase then. So in my house, my dad would have been the boss, my mum would have been like the kind of, like, the stay-at-home, the usual stay-at-home cook, the norm at the time. Like, my dad was the, like, if he got in trouble, that's who you're worried about coming home. So when he disappeared, I was kind of like, right, well, free reign now. Do whatever the fuck I want. So carried on like that probably for 16 to 18, 19, and then kind of copped on to myself, which is a testament to my parents, because they ingrained, like, right and wrong into me at a young age. So I think I had a couple of options there where I could have completely went off the rails, and I didn't, because I knew. I remember thinking about this, or talking to someone recently about it. A good few friends of mine have died recently from, like, drug overdoses and stuff like that. Guys I would have hung out with when I was younger and remained kind of friendly with. And one of them I tried to kind of help out. He came to live with me for a while and stuff. He was training actually for a good while, and he slipped back into things. But I think the difference is that, like, they mightn't have had that ingrained in them from their parents from a young age. Whereas I always knew when we were doing the bullshit that it was wrong. I was doing it anyway for the crack, where I don't think they really knew what they were doing was wrong. It was just normal to them.
So you're kind of highlighting the importance there of having a good support network, and despite background or what your social status is, of having a supportive family.
Yeah, I think like, in general, like, it's kind of obviously changing a fair bit, and like what the modern family is going to be different than what I grew up in. It's not like there's going to be a lot of kids growing up, like a lot more than when I was younger. I'm 36 now, but like when I was younger, separated parents was rare, but like, it's going to be a lot more common now. But I suppose just the network of how it works is going to be very important, and especially if you want to be doing sports at a high level or you want to be competing, having that there to rely on is going to be very helpful.
And so in those early years, were your friends getting into trouble, like with school and with the law and things like that?
Yeah, I was actually doing kickboxing from 6 till about 16, so I think maybe even younger, 5 or 6 I started, till I was 16. So that was my first kind of dabble into martial arts, and kind of trained consistently, maybe like 2-3 times a week through that time. But yeah, like, they were getting in trouble, as was I. I wasn't the saint, but I was probably, like, I remember at the time getting dragged into my house at 9 o'clock or 9:30 to be in, you're in this thing. And my other friends who would have been even younger than me, like, would have been still walking the streets at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, Just no, kind of like, they had no one kind of, I don't know, a lot of them would have looked up to my dad as almost like an advice giver, or like someone to put them back in their place, this kind of thing. Like, so.
And was your father, before he passed, was he like a mentor to you? Did you look up to him?
Yeah, I suppose like right before he passed, no, because I was 16. So you're starting to challenge your dad and think that you're the man of the house. But yeah, like to be honest, more when I look back, I see things like, as I look back as a man now, I look back and I see a lot of kind of similarities in myself, whether they're from witnessing how he interacted with people, but like I'd have a very kind of good relationship with all the lads off my team and lads that aren't on my team, young guys, and they'd come to me for advice and information and help or whatever, so.
And one thing I remember you saying about, I think maybe no shame, I'm sure, is going to Colins v Eubanks. Was it the first fight 95?
It was the rematch. It was the rematch in Páirc Chaoimh. Yeah, Páirc Chaoimh in Cork. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
Because at first I was like, I just assumed that it was the first one in Dublin, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I think I was 13 at the time, maybe 12 or 13. 95. Yeah. So my dad brought me down, me and my brother, and he'd been to the first fight, so he went to watch the first fight, and then he brought us to the rematch. It's crazy time, like in Ireland. Something I only thought about recently. There was people might want to hear this, but I was there. So there was weird racism in Ireland at the time. There was like, and people might want to like pretend it was all happy. Like there was monkey noises made towards Chris Eubanks when he was entering the arena, and it wasn't seen as weird. Now, not that none of my family were doing that, but I'm saying it was happening in the arena, and no one found it weird. It was like normal-ish. I don't know. But a crazy experience for me. My dad was from Ringsend originally, and so he would have known a few heads, as they were, from inner city Dublin, and they organised then for me to go in and meet Steve after the fight, like, which was a huge kind of, me mate Steve. I've met him once after that, like, but it was a huge thing for me, just to kind of, I don't know, he had the belt with him. It just seemed at the time probably the most manly, masculine shit I'd ever seen. You know, kind of, I was like, I want some of this in my life. So that was, and I'd had fights at that time, like kickboxing. I'd actually tried boxing clubs. Didn't really enjoy boxing, if I'm being honest. I think when you come from a sport, even like as close to boxing as kickboxing, I think you see how limited it is, even though it's a phenomenal sport in its own right. But I'm going like, well, what if I just kicked him here? Or what if I just, you know, this kind of thing. Like, that was always in my brain.
When you visited the boxing clubs, did you notice much of a difference in the ethos and the atmosphere and the vibe between boxing and kickboxing?
Yeah, so I would have thought at the time like boxing was a bit more salt of the earth, get stuck in kind of thing. I found with kickboxing it's a little bit flash. Like the lads, even the coach, were a little bit flash when I think back. Like, they weren't. I don't think a lot of them would cross over well into MMA. I think, the boxing ethos is outdated. In comparison, I find anyway. Well, they seem to be picking things up in comparison to MMA now, scientifically and stuff, you know. But they seem to be changing things up now with their weight cuts and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, they definitely. But hard nuts, basically hard dudes, tough.
So you said a little bit about the general people at the boxing event then, but what were the sports grounds like? Like, I was never taken to sports events. I grew up in the 90s as well, so I was never taken to any. I wasn't encouraged to go towards sports at all. Like, what were the halls and the venues and the places like?
Yeah, so like Páirc Chaoimh was like, it looked like a football stadium from the 50s. You know, it wasn't high end or anything. It wasn't high spec. It wasn't. I don't know how it is now. I haven't been back actually for anything. I don't know how. I went to a Dublin game up north recently. I think they were playing. Who were they playing now? But anyway, it reminded me of Páirc Chaoimh. It was kind of the stands and then like a few seats, but not many. You know. The pitch was then done in seats, obviously, and it was an outdoor event in Ireland. It was a mad for them to even think that was an option, but they pulled it off. But yeah, it was great. Like most of my competitions at the time would have consisted of on mats, like in a shitty hall, competing against like there used to be these like best of the best tournaments, or this kind of thing where a club picked like 5-6 of their guys against 5-6 of their guys, this kind of stuff. At a really young age, then I was probably being a little bit too aggressive when I was moved into the adult classes, and there wasn't the same ideas there is now for teens and adult classes, so I just got the head lumped off me by my dad and other men. So he went in and you just sparred men, and most of these men were like working men who this was a little release from life. So there's probably a little bit of built up tension in them. So I took a few clatters because I was kind of some of them would have come from boxing background, so I was more of a kicker, obviously, as I still am to this day. And you'd be kicking on the outside, and I was a tall, skinny 15, 14-year-old. And they just walked me down, put me into a corner in a room. It wasn't like a ring around, in a room with a wall, and beat absolute piss out of me. It's good fun though. Good fun.
And so one thing that happened to me soon after I joined TKF was I was in one of Dylan's beginners or fundamental striking classes, and he was making a point about something. Maybe it was keeping your hands up, or entry into a certain combination or something. And he stopped everybody and he asked everybody, who here has actually been in a fight? And not one person put their hand up except for me. Which I was like, is this a trick question? Why is nobody else putting their hands up? But I found that quite, that was eye-opening for me, because when I was their age, like most of the lads I'm training with are between 17 and 24, I think. But when I was younger, teenager especially, everybody fought.
Yeah, it was always in scraps. Yeah,
especially, and all the girls actually as well. Like I was jumped by girls, but I found it quite insightful in that it is a bit of a different generation now. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you think?
I actually was this came up in a conversation recently, and then I've asked a few people about it. Something that so obviously Swords is a bit of a strange one. Like I live in Swords. The estate I live in is very middle class. There's a few middle class estates, and there's a few working class estates, and then there's a few kind of in betweeny kind of stuff, and a couple kind of up above middle class even. But I never, right? I do be in the pavilion and stuff. I never see young lads walk around with a black eye. That was quite common when I was younger. Quite common for lads to have been in a scuff at the weekend, or fight over a girl or whatever. It doesn't seem to be that common a trait. I was telling my mum a bit about it, and as well, and I was saying, when I was younger, where I grew up was at the time, especially, it's not really anymore, but at the time it was quite rough. It was quite a rough area. It would have been marked as a black spot in Dublin, but there was a good few of them at the time. 90s in Dublin was a bit mad anyway. There was a bit of a heroin epidemic, basically, So, you could, I feel then, when I was younger, you'd catch a beating a lot quicker. If you walk into the wrong estate, or you go into the wrong, if I arrived in Ballymun, say, someone's like, who the fuck is that lad? Don't fucking know, get him, But it seems more sinister now. I feel like there's way more chance of something serious. The chance of being shot when I was a fucking kid didn't exist. There was no one got shot. I think the whole time I grew up in a really rough area, there was 2 shootings in the area my whole life. And both guys didn't die. They were shot almost like warnings. And I'd say it was Republicans or something, they tried to take over pubs or, this kind of shit. It was well above little low down drug problems, That's why people got caught a beating, basically. It seems now that, that seems to be, it's more sinister along that way. So I don't think guys are fighting anymore. I think they're, pulling knives on each other, or, I know every generation says this shit, but, it does feel like that. I never remember a time, and it didn't exist, because the statistics say where there was this amount of shootings that happen nowadays. It's very common. So, are you in the mind frame that if you get in a fight, someone's uncle's going to come back and do something that's, you just wouldn't even thought of when we were kids, So
we removed the drugs and the gang kind of related stuff, and the knives and the guns and all that. Just lads getting in fights with each other to assert dominance. I have a theory that people now assert their dominance on social media. What trainers they have, what haircuts, what hair they have around. Because people are now, you wouldn't have more than 2 pairs of trainers when I was growing up.
One of them had a hole in them. One of them had a hole in them, for sure. Yeah.
I still nearly live the way that I did when I was a kid back then. Do I really need it?
Yeah.
Whereas now it's social status.
I do remember though, when I was younger, people had cool runners and all that kind of stuff, and cooler runners than me. I remember being envious of lads with stuff. Weirdly, they're the same lads that I was talking about earlier on that would have been walking the street at their parents really didn't give a fuck. You know what I mean? But it seems to almost go hand in hand. That spoiled nature, especially in working class areas. So, the parents will splash out on the runners for the kids, but they won't bring them off on a Sunday somewhere. They leave them sitting in a fucking pub with a bottle of Lucozade. Yeah, I don't know about that. I'll have to have a think about that. I don't really know. It's maybe that is true. Maybe it's like, and maybe it's all image. And maybe getting into a fight then ruins that. You know what I mean? If you do get into a fight and you lose, it's all gone overnight, you know?
Well, being healthy has become cool as well.
Yeah.
You know, going to the gym and being fit and stuff. It's not like you used to be cool if you were a bad guy.
I think there's still a goo on guys to fight, though. I don't think that'll ever go. I think inherent in young men is the want to fight. And I think like by suppressing it is actually a really bad thing. I think I like, you've seen my kid around the gym. You've seen how I interact with him in the gym. I roll around the ground with him. I think that kind of rough and tumble play is part of, or not even being a man. I think it's part of being a human. I think it's very healthy. If you look at any other animal, it's how they grow up. Any other animal, they play, fight, they mess. It's how they get to know boundaries too. Like sometimes he'll go like do something. I'll be like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I pushed that too far." You know, when we're messing, he'll do something and kind of goes, "No, that's not cool." Like you got, like we were playing and now you pushed it. You know, I think if I look around, I see the young men that come into the gym. It's a little goo inside them to put that out. You've met them, you're around them all the time, those young lads. And I think the ones that suppress it, like, or if it's suppressed, maybe not by them, by parents, or by being told that this is wrong, or by being told that it ends up showing itself in different ways, which are not very healthy, you know. I think, like, I don't want my kid to fight MMA, Jesus. I don't, like, but, like, I'd love him to do jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? I'd love him to do jiu-jitsu. I'd love him to do jiu-jitsu constantly, like.
That actually leads really well into a point we have further down this.
About my kid fighting?
No, well, you said before about the idea that comfort isn't good for a fighter. I had a conversation with somebody recently where we discussed it was Reece McKee. I did an interview with Reece McKee recently when we were talking about how the first wave of people coming up in the Irish MMA scene, a lot of them had, you know, for Paddy, for example,
troubled backgrounds or whatever. Yeah.
Fighting for sustenance.
Yeah.
To put food on the table for a future. Whereas kids seem to have like a lot more options these days. They kind of understand, you know, what it takes and the risks, and people are choosing to do it rather than feel like they have no choice other than to fight. Like, what are your feelings about this? Yeah, I think if we look at fight sports in general, like any fight sport, so the historic one for us would be boxing. It's the older one. It's the one you can judge the most. You have the most time to judge. Another one would be Muay Thai. Many middle class people are high level at those sports. You know, where do they put boxing clubs? You know what I mean? There's a reason. Like that sport's around a long time. You know, and it used to be associated with middle class was a way to sort out problems. But like the truth is that like those middle class guys that were sorting out those problems were getting their working class guys to fight for them. You know, in the old Queensberry rules, their tough working class guy fought for them. He'd be like, "Okay, I'll put my best against your best." He wasn't fighting to go with the money. You know, I think it's very hard to like you know, there'll be different reasons. So the likes of likes of guys coming through now that are choosing to do it. They're going to choose to do this sport. They're going to want to fight to test their skill level. They don't have to fight. I didn't have to fight. I'm one of them. I didn't have to fight. I could have done any. I had better jobs, better paying jobs. Carl Pendrith never needed to fight. Guy has a degree, and Artem Lobov never needed to fight. Artem has a master's in finance. You know what I mean? He would have made more money still to this point if he had done that. You know, it's not like, I just feel that if you grow up your whole life in a middle class background and you've never been in a fight, or you've never had to struggle, or you never had, I think you'll fight to test your skill. But then if you're only fighting to test your skill, when shit goes wrong, are you going to have it there to bite down in your gum shield and go, right, I got to keep plugging away here? Or you're like, oh, and they're probably right. Well, why the fuck would I? You're right. You don't have to. You don't really have to, like, you know. So like I'm open to being proven wrong in that. A good example right now is probably Ian. Ian comes from a very like middle class family. Never really had a struggle. There's something in Ian though, I've seen, and I see it with a lot of guys. There's like a streak. I don't know where it comes from. I've never delved into it with him, but like there's a streak there. He,
like, as nice a kid as he is, he enjoys hurting people. You know what I mean? I see it with Ben Hughes as well. I didn't know it was there till the other night. I saw him smile when he hurt a guy. I hadn't seen that. You know, I saw like a technical kind of kid who has like shit tons of potential, could go on anywhere skill wise, but like I didn't know if he would enjoy the actual fight or not even enjoy, but be able to, like, you know, get that streak out in him. And I saw it there. I was surprised. As soon as it happened, I said it to Ian. Yeah. And then, like I said, I've seen it in Ian. I see, like, when I look around the room, I see Taka. Taka's probably very similar to me, you know, a lot of similarities. His dad died when he was quite young, kind of feel almost proving something to himself or to other people, you know. So and has a tendency to go off on a mad one when the when the opportunity arises. Would have been something I suffered with too. But it, like, you know, so I just don't know if you grow up like everything's simple, there's no real issues. I don't know where you're going to find that burning desire. And my goal is to make sure that my kid doesn't have any issues. So that burning desire, so if he does fight, it'll only ever be to prove, like a Cron Gracie, it'll be to prove that the technique works, you know?
Did you ever feel like that you had to sacrifice anything to pursue martial art?
Everything. Sacrificed everything. Like I said, I could have had I had better jobs, better paying jobs, could have had a much easier life. Could have, like, I bought my first home just recently, like, I could have done that years ago. Probably would have been doing other things. I get slagged by my wife a fair bit about this. She's like, we would have been grand had you just stuck at what you were doing. You know what I mean? I sacrificed everything, but like I wouldn't change it for the world. You know, I would have probably had like I would have had kids younger than I did. Like, not that I was old when I did, but like I would have had kids younger. But like I was concentrating on this, and I didn't want to be all over the place when he came along, you know. So yeah, no, I sacrificed a lot. She sacrificed too, yeah. Yeah, she's like kind of, Laura be like realistically the rock of the thing. I know loads of people say, like, I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but I'm not a big believer in the soulmate bullshit and all this kind of stuff. Like, I'm not this, you know, airy-fairy bullshit you watch in movies. Like, weirdly, I found my soulmate in the same city I grew up in. It seems a bit fucking slim. But the truth is, like, you find someone that benefits your life, that, like, you know, inspires you, makes things easier for you, and that's kind of what she does for me, you know what I mean? So.
At what point did you actually meet Laura?
Before I'd ever fought.
So what, when you were like a late teen? Or
20, 21, yeah. I broke up and went traveling for a while, got back together, this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, we've been together since I was 20. I had my first fight at 25, so we were together a long time before I fought. Now, I'd been training the whole time, but I'd never had a fight.
And so she's kind of always been a positive and supporting influence for you, but also for your friends and your colleagues and the people you were training with.
Yeah. So the guys would have all kind of stay in the house or whatever. You know, like Artem, say, he used to live with his mum, and so Artem had a penchant for getting his face bust up before fights, and he or after fights, sorry. So he'd be there messed up, and he didn't want to go home, his mum, to see it, so he'd stay in my house with me and Laura for a while. I remember Peter Queally was a testament to Peter. Peter was like coming up to train, didn't have any money, so was sleeping in his car at the gym. When I found out, he came over to stay in my place for a while. Yeah, Laura's always kind of been on board with that, like an open door policy for guys coming and going from the house, like, you know. Still to this day, James lives there. Omran stays there when he's over. Oh, yeah, pretty much everyone's been through the doors at one time or another.
So, you know, you're looking after your students, both you and Laura, but also teaching them some of the younger ones, like life skills as well as being a coach. Like, are you aware of how much of an influence that you have on these people? I
am, and the truth is, like Laura's the reason I'm not a piece of shit, so it's kind of, you know what I mean? So it kind of works both ways. I think, I am, and I find that, that's the bit I struggle with sometimes. I remember, like I've done a lot of corners from big fights. I've cornered for, like, good few Cage Warriors title fights. I've cornered for UFC fights. I've cornered for, you know, big pro debuts and, with a lot of hype behind them. I've been involved in tons, thousands of corners. I was shitting myself the night Ben Hughes was walking out to have his first fight because he was 18. I was like, this kid has put his life, like basically, not his life in my hands, but like, his parents have put their trust in me. He's put his trust in me. And yeah, so I take that quite serious. You probably see how I am with the lads. Like I call them out on their bullshit as often as possible. I kind of find that that's a thing that a lot of coaches either shy away from or try to pretend isn't their fucking business. Well, then don't do the job, because it's a huge part of it. Probably a bigger part than demonstrating a little bit of fucking technique. Because the truth is that, like, how many guys are you going to have in the UFC? But how many guys are going to come through your doors and go on and do something else, So you push them in the right direction. I've had a policy like that I only broke recently, that I wouldn't let anyone fight while they were still in school. Craig made me break that. Ben Hughes wanted to leave school. I told him that he had to leave the gym if he was leaving school. So we've had I kind of see my in my role, I'm like their big brother basically. That's how I look at it. But like a big brother with finally a bit of cop on in my life, so I can point them in the right direction. But yeah, I do, like, I've had to pull Taka out of a few situations. Had him barred from a nightclub. Went up and spoke to the bouncer. I know him quite well. Said to him, he's not allowed in here for the next 5 weeks. So this kind of stuff. It's some of the lads are like the Shelleys. Just do their own thing. You know what I mean? Like they're grand. I don't really need to watch out for them. Ian's quite self-sufficient. Taka now you have to keep an eye on, but serious talent there.
One thing I like to ponder over is the difference between a coach and an instructor. And I think you kind of
that's
big
yeah.
time. Have you ever any other thoughts about the concept of a coach in comparison to somebody who just instructs?
Yeah, like I don't think there's many instructors that are answering phone calls at 3 a.m. to make sure someone isn't in any hassle, or dealing with their outside problems, like stuff going on at home or whatever. I don't I've always kind of been a bit of that person. I would have done it, like if we chatted to many of the older school guys, like I would have done it for lads off the team forever. Like when I was just fighting myself, kind of almost assumed like a team captain role. Like I was saying with people coming over to stay in the house and stuff, kind of advice giver or like I go a few times digging people out of financial situations or whatever, that kind of way. I suppose, like most people, I prefer, I like giving stuff more than I like receiving it. So I like helping people out. And I suppose if you don't have that nature, then you are just an instructor. I never really thought about that. I always just thought that this is the role. But there is too, there's an instructor. And I suppose you can just call yourself that. You come in, you show your class, and you go home,
It's part why I moved gyms, because I felt like my MMA coach wasn't
a coach. Okay.
I felt like he was showing me things, and that was where it ended.
Yeah. I've seen that before. I can get it. I can get their point of view on it. Like they don't want it to cross over. But it's a strange job to take up if you don't want that. There's a lot of jobs that you can just go in, you clock out, and you're done. Like it's not that kind of job. Like especially if you want to, if you want to bring people on, the trust that you build from them having that connection with you. Like I always find Tom. I've said this a few times. Tom's a stoic, as you know, he's a stoic guy. Quiet, unassuming, kind of a weird sense of humor, but you have to get to know him to drag it out. So he kind of drags a thing out of people where they almost, like the dad thing, they want to prove to him they could do it. So they run through walls from, I'm the arm around guy, make sure you're okay, anything you need, and I'll go out of my way to help you. People will run through walls for that too, and then I think the two together covers all the bases. So we kind of get people that just run through walls for us no matter what, So we cover both bases. Whether it's like you're looking for that kind of someone you want to prove to, or someone that you feel you owe something to, that kind of way.
Did you meet Tom in post-cross or?
I met him before actually trained in SPG.
Okay.
We trained in a martial arts gym years ago. Weirdly, sorry, I keep doing this with my coffee. Yeah.
I don't mind at all.
So me, Tom, Emmett, Nolan, who coaches in the gym, Mark Smith. So a lot of like guys that would have been some the SPG, like kind of like high level SPG guys back in the day, were all in a traditional martial arts gym. Tom was a black belt. It was Japanese jiu-jitsu we were doing. I actually thought I was doing jiu-jitsu. I didn't fucking know. I arrived thinking, I heard about jiu-jitsu. I was doing judo and I was doing kickboxing, and I was like, right, I got to cover the ground game. Didn't really know about MMA properly. I was thinking like, right, if I end up in a fight, I have kickboxing. If someone tries to like grab a hold of me of judo, and then I was like, well, what if I end up in a fight in the ground? So right, I got to learn this jiu-jitsu shit. I went to the club, and like Tom was a black belt there, and he tried to convince he was already training BJJ, and he was trying to convince the owner to do it, and the owner had all these guys under his roof, and he wouldn't go along with it, like, so he lost them all. Strange. I hope I'm never that stiff. I always want to be malleable, like open to new ideas. I feel I am anyway, like, and I think if you're in MMA, you generally are. You know what I mean? Because it's changing so fast all the time. But he just wouldn't bend to it. He was doing jiu-jitsu, which had ground fighting in it. So like all Tom wanted to do was like add way more ground classes, which would have, the gym would probably still be alive had the guy done it, like, and he would have had ready-made instructors, like all guys that instruct at a decent level now. Yeah.
What were your first impressions of him though? Like, would you have ever been able to foresee that you'd end up being business partners?
I think the first time we ever met, we were drunk at a house party, and we ended up rolling out the back in your man's back garden. He tapped me too. Started the habit of a lifetime. I think that was the first time we ever met. Me and Tom always got on. Tom was at my wedding. He was at my stag, well before we had a business together. We were always we had a little group of people that hung out together. Wouldn't have hung out a ton outside of training, like maybe 3 times a year, go for beers or whatever, but like, would have all had a similar interest, big into Pride, UFC, this kind of stuff. And then, so we would have like met at different things, and then we would have been training together for a bit, So, in answer to your question, probably not at the start. I probably didn't know. To be honest, I did kind of know from very early on. I knew I was going to go into coaching. I knew that was going to be my role. But I really couldn't have worked out better. Like, I think me and Tom fit perfectly. I think it's the perfect mixture.
When you say early on, at what point kind of?
She's before I ever had a fight. Like, I kind of know. I enjoyed coaching even back then. So we had that in that traditional martial arts club. Emmett Nolan would have been my first coach. He was a blue belt under John. He's the guy who sent me to SPG. So I was trained out there, and I fought in a thing called the MMA leagues, like an old school kind of MMA thing. And then I beat him in an Irish Open, and Emmett then sent me to John, which I love. Like, so he was like, right, I can't teach anymore, so good luck. But then at that time, he was teaching almost an MMA class, like in this traditional martial arts club. So he used to get me to teach striking in it. I always enjoyed it. Me and him used to meet up and go over techniques and stuff like that, just like bounce them off each other. At the time, I was meeting up with Phil White, who did a seminar recently, always been my striking coach. And we used to like be mad into the UFC too. So we used to roll around in a club where he was teaching. It was a striking club. We used to roll around the carpet, like we'd watch videos and then try the submissions out on each other. Like, it's crazy shit. It's not even that long ago. It feels like it's like, it's not like it was 1992 or something. It was like 2000. You're talking 2003. Like, it's not like a stupid amount of time ago. Well, it is, but it isn't,
Well, I think in the amount of time that MMA has existed, really, we're talking
half the time, or more.
In the form that it's in now, that people say MMA is 25 years old. I'm sorry, what was happening 25 years ago?
Yeah, no, it's not the same thing. Yeah. The first time it resembled what it resembles now was the Chuck Liddell era, I suppose. That kind of era with Randy and Chuck, and people were a bit rounded.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just speaking of which, what was it like after being a fan of the sport for ages and then going to the Ultimate Fighter? The likes of Chuck Liddell and people like that being there. Like, what was that experience like?
A little bit surreal. Nothing to do with my performance on the show, right? Not up to scratch anyway. But like, I actually really didn't enjoy the experience at all. I think I think they've figured out it's an outdated idea now. At the time, it made sense, because there was lads were working full-time jobs. But by the time I came along into it, everyone was a full-time fighter, so it didn't really makes sense. Guys were training full time anyway, so going to somewhere to train full time with worse coaches or lesser coaches, or even like just coaches you didn't know, wasn't really worth the time. But it was cool to meet them all. It was cool to like you walk in, BJ Penn's your coach. Like I would have watched BJ my whole career. You know, Frankie Eggers, the other coach. Chuck Liddell's dropping in. Mark Coleman's there. Mark fucking Coleman is chatting to you like you're his friend. Still chats to me like I'm his friend. You know what I mean? Still like sends me messages and shit. A fucking proper OG, you know, Cottle's dad. You know what I mean? Look at him, the image of him and Randy. He's like a mixture of the two of them. But like he still sends us like messages or writes stuff to us on Twitter. Like, so we kind of made a like, you know, good connection with him. I got on really well with BJ and Perillo as well. I thought they were really cool guys. But yeah, like that part of it was cool, kind of surreal. I'm a little bit different than a lot of the guys. I don't think, like, obviously I had aspirations to fight but I was just a fanboy who started fighting, really. Like, I was a mega fan. A lot of the guys don't really know a lot. Sometimes, like, I talk to guys that, like, I came up with and they haven't, like, they would have watched Fuck All Pride. They wouldn't remember fights. Like, I'm like Laura slags me, I'm like an encyclopedia with this shit. When I'm teaching a class, I talk about a fight from, like, 2006 where some guy used this technique, you know, because I'm just obsessed with the sport, like obsessed. And that's the way I was. I used to buy like Fighters Only magazine. I remember buying Fighters Only magazine and there was a paragraph about me in it. I nearly shit myself. I was like, fuck, oh my God, about my fight. I was like, I still have it at home. I kept it. All the other shit I threw out. All the shit over the years. UFC gloves, gave them away to people and I didn't really care. I have a Fighters Only magazine with a paragraph about a fight I had on a show called Ultimate Force back in 2008 or something, 2009. Yeah, crazy shit.
I guess with the kids now coming up, see the kids.
Well, they'll never read a fucking magazine, I can promise you that.
But I mean, like, the amateur scene as we know it now didn't really exist back then. So I have noticed that with Instagram and social media, there's a lot of, mostly lads, but people in general that I've been meeting who are following the amateur scene, but then don't know who loads of big names in.
Yeah, so they're only watching. Well, I think that's great. I think we suffered with that early on. I'd like to see a lot more people show up to local shows. I think like the standard here is so high. I think like imagine that in any other sport. Imagine people showed up for a League of Ireland football. The stadiums were like 20,000 instead of going over to watch Man United play. Or, you know, I think both is cool. Like I think if people were watching UFC new, I think though people showing up to AMI and like lower level pro fights, I think we're struggling a little bit at the moment. One thing I would say is we're struggling a little bit because, and this isn't a knock, so I think people are always waiting on some kind of stab, but like Bellator are putting guys on that are 1-0 or 1-1 and they're fighting on Bellator in the undercard. I get why, because they're going to bring guys into the arena and whatnot, but like I think we're struggling then on the local scene because they're usually the guys who top up a card. So you have like an AMI and then one pro fight at the end and they be those guys. Now, I get why the guys do it. They're getting better paid than they would. But it's making the scene struggle a little bit here because, like, that's where you cut your teeth. You cut your teeth on a local show as a pro. You fight another Irish guy. Or maybe to bring a guy from Scotland or England or Wales over, you know, and you fight him. Both these are 1-0. You progress on. So that's starting to disappear. So what we're getting now is a lot of the like, not lower level shows, I don't mean that because the standard of the show is phenomenal now, but like say lower down, domestic circuit is an easier way of saying it, yeah, without offending anyone. We're not getting pros topping up the show. So we're getting as a full AMI card. And then people are going, oh, you only put AMI fights on because all the fucking pros are fighting in the tree arena and their first fight. You know what I mean? What's to build from that? Where do you go? Like, where's your next step? All I know is that there isn't shows and that it's difficult to put on shows. I know of people that have tried to and it hasn't worked out. So that has to be something that has to be rectified. What we have right now, and I'm around it constantly, and I go to these shows. So if any of my guys fight, I'm there. If it's their first AMI fight, if it's their 20th pro fight, I'm there. I'm going to be there. If the only reason I won't be there is there's another fight going on that I've said I'll go to first, so I'm at that one, you know. But if I'm around and I'm in the country, I'll be at my guys' fights. If it means me getting off a plane into Dublin and getting in my car and driving straight to Belfast, which I've done many times, I'll be there for someone's first AMI fight, you know. Because to me, the way I see it is, like, everyone's fight to them is the most important thing in the world. So James fought at the weekend, massive fight, or last Friday, sorry, massive fight, world title fight on Cage Warriors, main event, big card, right? He fought on Friday. On Sunday, 2 18-year-olds from my gym fought on. To them, that fight's as important as James's fight. Might be to the outside world, you know what I mean? But to them, it's everything. They've been building for ages. So for me to treat it any different is just shitty. That's what's going on. That's what's going on because there's no fucking amateur shows in Ireland. There's none, like the North is able to put on I'd say there's about 15 shows a year in total between them all, right? Let's say 10 to 15, right? Between all the shows that go on. So Clan Wars 3 to 4 times a year. You have Cage Conflict. You have Cage Warriors Academy. You have Akuma. All these shows are putting on shows regularly. And then we've Cage Legacy down south. That's it. So I'm sending all my guys up north all the time. Yeah, every time I do this, there's a shitstorm. But like all that's happening is the sport is suffering. You know what I mean? That's all.
Does it get frustrating though when it feels like that people are looking for a story based on how much drama or if it'll go viral or pick up grow legs basically?
Yeah.
Grow like that.
To be honest, I haven't been around that too much. Anytime, say interviews, would have done with like Pizzi, it would have been like between both of us, me saying I want to do it with Pizzi because I know he's going to put across what I'm actually saying. In that kind of way, like I know he's not going to try and fucking swerve and twist it and turn it and make problems out of it. It'll be word for word what I said in the interview, or it'll just be the interview played out, so it's what I said, I wouldn't really organise to meet up with anyone else other than you today, but I wouldn't really organise that, that's who I like to go through, because, and it's not that I'm trying to North Korea this shit, I'm just trying to, I just want what I'm saying put across directly, that's all, I think, there's a little bit, I remember with the Ian stuff, before the last fight, people were almost enjoying that was being put out and kept plugging it. I'm not a fan of that. I had a word with Ian after it myself, realistically, if you watch the actual interview, it's not what he said at all, Yeah, but it's very easy to play a small bit of anything. You could do the same with this and it can make me out to be a right asshole, which isn't hard. But, I had a chat with Ian as well. They needs to watch that, you need to watch that because people are smiling through their teeth at you and they'll use, they want to get ahead too.
What I think is really funny is he pretty much said word for word something that you had already said. And that Paddy had brought up. We discussed that on the No Shame podcast. And in context,
it makes sense.
Yeah. And also, nobody said anything about that really at the time.
I would probably get more of a pass than Ian does, though.
What was it? I think you said nobody wakes up and wants to say that they want to play for China, they want to play in the Premiership, and he just said Barnsley.
What's he getting on Barnsley for, though? You know what I mean? Just Ian, I was worried before the last fight, nothing to do with Ian's headspace is always going to be good. Ian's one of those weird people that come along every so often that they're made for pressure cooker situations. That's what he's good at. That's, if he wasn't such a div, he would have made a deadly general, I suppose, because he'd never kind of panic move. The occasion doesn't get to him. But I was worried that for the first time in his career, he was going to have a group of people probably hoping he loses or not wanting him to get on well. You know what I mean? So they could say, well, fuck you. When they probably didn't really listen to what the kid had to say. And really, I'm going to be completely honest. And anyone that was thinking that, whether you're someone who's fighting in the organization or whether you're someone that's a fan of theirs, or just stop for a second and think. There's no one right, that's doing this sport at a high level that doesn't want to compete at the highest level, that doesn't want to compete against the highest level. And if they do, their thinking is wrong. Now, I get at a certain point, or if that's your choice, that you just want to go make money and you want to earn as much money as possible, and you deserve that. Working your ass off, you deserve to get paid. But when you started training your first few sessions and you started dreaming about what you were going to do, there were a pair of black gloves with white writing on them. They were, like, no, and anyone that says any different is fucking lying to me. They are, like, I know they're lying, because it's like in any sport, you want to contest it against the best people around. In 5 years, that may be different. In 5 years, like, that might be the UFC, you know, but right now it is, and it has been up to this point. And so anyone that started this sport and wanted to, like, wasn't just thinking about money, because when you start things, you don't really think about money. You think about how much fun it is and how great it is. You wanted to do it to contest it against the best people on the planet. Yeah, so I think, like, if you're involved in a sport and you're not looking to compete at the highest level, you're fooling yourself, aren't you? Really, like. Now, if you decide then at some point to go, well, I deserve to get as much money, fair play to go for it. I think, anyway.
So, like, what do you reckon the importance of, like, communication between the teams and the coaches and the respect there is in this game? Like, you know, do you think that it becomes a problem when, you know, something you're passionate about and you're doing it because of passion, it becomes about business? Like, and how do you stay authentic in the face of that?
Yeah, difficult question. To be honest, like, right now in my coaching career, I haven't come to that crossroads where I have to make those decisions. So it's very easy for me to sit here. I think anyone that kind of knows me knows the direction I'm going to go when it comes to that, you know. I'm not money driven. Never have been really in my life. Don't like flash things. Don't care. I like showing up to my gym. I like training. I like bringing my kid down. I like him being around people he can look up to. I like him seeing, like, you know, whether you're a sounding person and an asshole online, like, this is like a thing, oh, but he's just trolling. Like, if my lads are doing that, my kid's going to be at an age, or my nephews right now are at an age where they're going to read that stuff. And then they're going to go, well, that's cool to act like that. It's okay. And Chris is okay with him acting like that, or Dad is okay with him acting like that. So I'm going to act like that. You know what I mean? And I have a situation where I can control the to a point. Obviously, I'm not, like, they have their own personalities, but I can control to a point the people that are going to influence my kid. And so I'm very honest with everyone from the day we walked in. I set everyone in a circle. I said, there's no bullshit online. We don't call people out. You know what I mean? If there's a conversation made, someone says something, you're allowed to answer them back. We're not going out and talking. Like, you can call them out saying, I'd love to fight this guy. You just don't talk shit about teams or their fighters. If you walk in with a Louis Vuitton bag and sunglasses, you're getting toe bogged down the stairs. It's not happening. It's not creeping in. There's no shit where you're going to act like you're better than other guys in the club. You train in the jiu-jitsu classes. You train in the mixed class with everyone else. We're not just the MMA team. We're a team. The whole thing is a team. And I think anyone that trains in my team feels that. You know, you're there one day, you're watching Ian fight on telly, right? And he's getting big, this kid, or James, say, right? They're getting big. There's a lot of hype about them. You're probably, like, watching an interview like this with them, and then the next day they're the guy you're practicing the technique with. You know what I mean? And that's I never want that to change in my gym. Never want to change. I don't want a fucking clique of MMA guys. We meet up every day and train. The lads come back down that night and train with everyone else. So we meet as a group and we train. They do their own training, their own sparring, all that stuff then, and then they meet up with everyone else and they train, and it's a team environment. Everyone feels like they had a part to play, which they did in getting them there. And I've been part of teams, and I've been part of teams when that stopped existing, and it was not beneficial for the team at all. So I'll never change it.
So the idea of celebrity is something that you don't really want to have in the gym, that separation between celebrity and normal.
I think no one wants to take a photo of a guy that they're around all the time. That's the truth of it. When you separate them, they're going to want those pics. And then that becomes this weird thing in the gym. No photos in the gym of this person. If they're around them all the time, they're just some guy they're around all the time. You know what I mean? They're not a celebrity. They're nothing more than you. They're some guy in a mat. Like, what? Look at this sport is, like, not that special. People need to get the fuck over themselves. Like, we're not doing anything special. We are basically prostitutes. We sell our bodies. No, we are, like, we sell our bodies for people's entertainment. That's what we do. Put ourselves in harm's way, basically. for people's entertainment. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with the breakdown of it. I'm obsessed with the, like, figuring out the Rubik's Cube that is the sport. But, like, when you break it down to its nuts and bolts, people pour into an arena, pay a load of money to watch two guys fight. Have a fist fight. Because it's the most entertaining sport on the planet. Alright? There's a football match going on over there, and there's 70,000 people in the arena watching it, and two guys start having a scrap in the stands. What's everyone looking at? They're going to look at the fight. No matter what's happening here, people want to see two guys knock. And, like, but, like, let's not get it twisted. Like, don't be walking around with fucking sunglasses on in the middle of the night. Like, you know, you're not a rock star. You're not a fucking movie star. You're a guy who fights other humans for money. Like.
Walk out with shades on, MVP.
Yeah, you know.
What you
So now, it's weirdly though, like, there is little times where I'll let it slide. Like someone like MVB, that just seems like it's his style. I'd say if he was working in H&M, he'd still be walking around like that. You know what I mean? I get that that's probably him just across the board. But if that isn't you and you're faking it, you just look like a cock, is the truth. Like, if it's not real, like, if it's not real, and it's very rarely real. There's very few guys that are like actually that kind of, that's their buzz all the time. You know, they're working in Tesco, but they're still flying around with sunglasses on because they don't give a fuck, you know?
One thing that I like to discuss with people is how people feel about the prize fighter versus professional athlete angle, because people tend to feel really strongly about one or the other, and it's the first time I've heard somebody just say that we're cross-country. So if you were to choose between prize fighting, say it's a scale between prize fighting and professional athlete, athleticism, who have personal trainers and strength and conditioning and dietitians and body workers, all that kind of stuff that goes with athleticism. Like, where do you feel this?
I don't like the term prize fighting at all, to be honest. I think, and like, not for the connotations that most people wouldn't like it for, you know, because then like people go, oh, it's like dog fighting. And that's not why I don't like it. I just think it leads to this thing where you don't have to act like an athlete, or it doesn't have to be a sport. Or if it's just about prize fighting, then just fight the shittest guys you can for the most money. You know what I mean? What's the prize? The prize to me is beating the guy. The prize isn't the money at the end of it. Gee, like I said, I could have made a lot more money in my life. And like, even the jobs I was doing, I would have made more money to this point in my career. I would have moved on to other things anyway, you know? But like, yeah, I don't like the term. Like, it leads down the road we're going, where you get a can, smash them, get paid loads of money, act like you're Billy Big Bollocks, and that's it. Or you fight meaningful fights that, like, I'm gonna show my kid those fights when I'm older. I'm gonna show my grandkids those fights. I'm gonna show, like, you know, and like, they won't have to read comments underneath it going, who the fuck is this bum he's fighting, or why did you feed him a can, or, you know, this kind of stuff. I think it's about sport to me. If it's not about sport, if it's just about just get a fucking job. Just get a job. If it's just about earning money, if it's literally just about earning money, just get a job. You'll make more money in the long run, and you'll do less damage to yourself. You know what I mean? Just get it. Like, I can't think of anything more miserable than doing this for money. Like, just for money. Just solely for money. Showing up and getting punched in the face for money. Like, imagine working in an office, right? And every morning some guy just goes in the face, and that's it. That's your job. Like, that's it. You have to take one or two, and you don't really like it because you're doing it just for money. Like, that's what people say about their jobs they don't particularly like. You know, why do you do that? Money. Prize fighting. You know, it's about sport. It's about beating the guys in front of you. It's about contesting against the toughest opponents you can find. You know, and I'm lucky, like, that's the way I think. I'm lucky that my business partner is like a very high level jiu-jitsu player that does that all the time, puts it on the line. I'm lucky that all the guys have walked through my door, whether they've walked through my door because they've heard me talk like that, or they've heard about me, or when they've walked in and got the vibe of the gym, they didn't leave because that's what they want to. And that's the guys that I'm surrounded by. You see who my guys fight. We've never picked a fight. I've never gone, like, I've never got a message from a promoter about an opponent and gone, oh no, what about this guy? Never for any of my guys, like, never. And I wouldn't. You know what I mean? I might say, that's a bit too early for him. As, like, if I have an enemy that's 1-0 and they offer me 11-1 guy, I'm like, yeah, well, it's a bit early for him to fight him. But, like, I've never tried to pick my opponents. I definitely have a matchmate to show, so all my guys get the easy fights, you know. So I think it's important for them to be tested. I think it's important for the guys to, like, you know, they want to go and fight in the top level show in the world, and I think it's important for them to be tested early on so they know. But yeah, I can't think of anything worse than doing this just solely for money. It has to be a passion. Think about what you're doing every day. It has to be a passion. And then if it's a passion, well, then it should be about fighting the best people, right?
Where do you want to be at the end of 2020?
At the end of 2020, I'd like to have, like, at least one guy in the UFC. I think that's very possible. The MMA team went, at the moment, we've 4 more fights to contest for the year. We're 29-5-1. I think is like about an 88% win rate, which is just bananas. I think I think next year, and you know, you're not going to hit 100% win rate in MMA, but as close to that as we can get. But I just think, like, I have a few AMI guys that are going to turn pro early next year. They're fighting in the next few weeks, and we'll see how those results go, and then we'll base off that. So, like, it'll either be March time or the summer, one or the other, depending on how results go. And then I just think we've got, like, a team, like a force to be reckoned with then. I think at the moment we're kind of known as a big guy gym because a lot of our guys are pros, are welter, or heavier. But all our AMI guys are smaller and they're tearing it up. So they're all coming through into the pro ranks now. So we'll have a nice full team then. I just want to have a bit of fun. I'm enjoying it. Like, it's tough, like, it's hard, but I love it. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think one guy in the UFC, maybe another Cage Warriors title, and go a few pro wins under our belt.
I have a list of people when people ask me, and across all the gyms, that people I think that others should watch out for. If you were to pick, you know, 2 or 3 guys from your gym, and not Ian or James that people already know.
Yeah.
People that amateurs that people might not have heard of. Who would you say were definite ones to watch over the next year or 2?
I'll put them in one because they always get confused anyway. The Shelley brothers, Kamil and Taka. I think I think Kamil's a little dark horse. So Kamil had, like, a bit of a rocky start, and he had, like, a losing record, like a quite sufficient losing record, like quite a big losing record at the start, because he just took on anyone on a week's notice. Just, he was like, I want to fight, and I was like, relax, man, no, I want to fight. So he's fighting really high level opposition in his first couple of fights, just jumping in there. I think he went 1-3, and then I think he's won 4 of his last 5 against high level competition. And I think his style, he's doing that at amateur, his style is going to transfer better into pro, because he's a kind of ground and pound guy. But by the time he gets settled into position, 3 minutes are up, 5 minutes leaves you a lot longer on elbows. I think the Shelleys, their style is just fun to watch. They're very nice to watch, very clean. I describe them as swans because they're kind of long and skinny. So they're very graceful in how they move. But yeah, they're 2 guys. Their striking pedigree's unreal. But their grappling's gone through the roof. Like, it's just shot through the roof. And Taka has all the potential in the world with that kid. It's just keeping him grounded and on the straight and narrow. And he'll do a lot of damage. And I'll throw one in for Ben Hughes as well. Ben's 2-0 now at 18. A scary prospect. His grappling's another level.
It's such a gentle soul, but what you're saying about that streak of...
Yeah, I saw the smirk. I was so happy.
I finally got to see him fight now last weekend.
Yeah.
It was really, really cool.
Like, by a kid that age, I'm fighting a full-grown man, you know? Yeah, scary.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sitting
Brilliant.
down.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being patient with me.
I'm all good.
Sitting it out a bit longer than we expected to.
Peace.